building up a platform where hope can
Welcome to the Nikki Clarke Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nikki Clarke, and I am so excited to be back with another stellar interview. The Nikki Clarke Show is where we are transforming lives one story at a time, and we've been doing it for 17 years. In October, it will be 18 years on the air, and so honored to facilitate this incredible community of conversations that matter. So today, we're having an important conversation about healing, hope, mental wellness, and what it means to truly be seen and heard. So, my special guest is Tami Ward. She's a licensed mental health counselor. She's an author, speaker, and founder of Anchored in Hope Counseling in Rhode Island. And through her work, Tami supports individuals navigating trauma, anxiety, grief, attachment challenges, and major life transitions. Her approach reminds us that healing is not simply about getting through difficult experiences. It's also about creating safe spaces, understanding ourselves more deeply, and rediscovering hope. So please join me in welcoming Tami Ward. Welcome, Tami.
Thank you so much for having me, Nikki.
Awesome. So let's get started. Tell us about yourself and what inspired you to become a mental health counselor.
I think for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to help people. Even being a little child, I remember I was the one that people would come to. They would be like, Tami, help me out. Tami, I was the peacemaker. I was the one that had like the solutions. I was the one people felt safe with. And then as I grew, I realized that it was truly a gift, that just my presence was something that people tended to gravitate towards. So I was like, what can I do to bring this gift to a career? And so as I got older, I married and had children. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years. So I started late in life and I said, I would love to, I've always wanted to be a therapist.
Mm.
But I had my own trauma. So I was always concerned that my own trauma would stop me from being a good therapist. But through my own healing and my own introspection, I learned that that's not the case. And so a lot of my experience, my lived experience really resonated with people. And so I was like, let's do this. Let's go to school. So I went back to school late in life and I graduated in 2021 and I got my license in 2024 and I've had my own practice for about 2 years now.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your practice. It's called Anchored in Hope Counseling. And what does that name mean to you? And why is hope such an important part of healing?
I think a lot of times we're so connected in this world, but we're so disconnected in a way. We're more connected than ever, but for some reason we feel more lonely and alone than ever before. And I think social media is a great place to share stories, but I also feel like it's a place to get lonely. And so I wanted people to know that hope is still possible. And since I live in the ocean state in Rhode Island, I said, anchors, nautical, it's all about the ocean and sea life and, anything nautical. And so I love the anchor. And we have the anchor on our hope flag. Our flag for Rhode Island says hope, and there's an anchor. And so I always wanted people to know that you can be anchored in hope. Some people
Mm.
think of an anchor as being held down, but I think of it as being a place where you can feel safe and held in safety. So I always thought that the anchor was a great symbol, and hope is always the way to go. I think hope is just something as human beings that we need to hold on to every day.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Your work with people experiencing trauma, anxiety, and grief, and significant life transitions have brought you to this incredible place in your life. But what are some of the signs that someone may need additional emotional support?
I think a lot of times when people feel like they're just feeling down, there could be small times in their lives where they're just feeling down. But when it starts to impede on your daily life and it starts to stop you from doing things that bring you joy, I think that's really time for you to seek out some new help. A lot of people feel alone, but there's a lot of resources out there online. I know 988. My clients, sometimes if they can't get in touch with me between sessions and I'm not there to be able to support them during that time, they've used 988. In the United States, it's 988. So they dial 988 and they call and they speak with someone, and it's a really good support system for people who don't have like a lot of family or people to talk to. And not a lot of people have access to really good mental health. So those people too, to use those resources. And like I said about social media, there's a lot of groups on Facebook or, Instagram or TikTok. I know some people are like, oh, TikTok, but it can really be a powerful tool to use so that you don't feel so alone anymore. You can
Mm,
get into a community there. I belong to a couple of therapist groups on Facebook, and if you can really look at the 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 stuff that's in the group and not fall victim to all the drama, the groups are really super helpful. You can really,
mm.
a lot of people will ask a lot of questions that you were nervous about asking or wondering the answer to, and then they get brought up in group, and you're like, I was thinking that same thing. And then you don't feel so alone anymore. You just have to give it a chance and don't fall into the drama, which is hard, but you just kind of scroll by, just scroll by.
Absolutely. So you emphasize the importance of people feeling seen, heard, and accepted. Why can that be so powerful in the healing process?
I think a lot of times people come to therapy and they want to feel like they're being fixed. But a lot of times people are just looking for someone who will sit with them without judgment, without trying to change them, and simply say, I see you. I see you as you are. I accept you as you are. And that's where the healing starts. When we finally feel safe enough to really fully be ourselves in a space that feels comfortable to us, that's when we can really start asking the hard questions. And therapy is a relationship. I'm a relational therapist, so I really feel like the relationship is really the therapeutic process of healing, because if we don't have a good relationship with one another, then you're not going to feel safe enough to be able to ask me hard questions. And I want you to come in as you are, ready to sit with me in the grief and the messiness of what's going on in your life, and feel comfortable to be with me in my space. My space is very cool and calm, and it has ocean colors. The blues are very calming. And I have fidgets and I have things. If you want to draw, let's draw. If you want to play Uno, let's play Uno. If you want to sit and cry and be messy, cry, let's do that too. If you need to get up and move around, we move around. I want people to understand that therapy doesn't have to be scary.
Excellent. So trauma can affect the way people see themselves and relate to others. How can someone begin separating who they are from what they've experienced?
I think a lot of times people have to wonder about what their own story is and whether their story needs to be heard. A lot of times when you're dealing with trauma that from the past, you don't realize that it's affecting how your life is today. You think, oh, I should be over it by now. It's been 30 years, it's been 20 years, it's been 40 years, however many years, and you're like, I should be over this. Your body remembers things that happen to you that your mind may not always remember. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Your body remembers things that you are being safely not told to remember. Your brain is protecting you. But a lot of times the body will have this imprint of information that's been brought on you from trauma, and it affects your daily life today. If you were growing up in an emotionally neglectful family when you were younger, as an adult, if someone doesn't pay attention to you, or if someone's not listening to you or validating your feelings, those feelings are going to come back to you, and you may not know where they're really coming from, but they come from earlier experiences of trauma that you may not always realize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How does attachment influence our relationships and the patterns we may repeat throughout our lives?
Attachment is basically simply how we learn to connect with other people. It's shaped by our earliest relationships and our experiences in the world. So as soon as we're born needing everything. We are mammals that need everything from minute one. We need mama's milk. We need food, we need holding, we need nourishment, we need all of these things. And we don't realize that our brain really, like I said, it imprints those feelings of feeling taken care of since we were younger. So if you have an emotionally neglectful family that wasn't there for you, you may not, as you grow older, you may start to experience like feelings of abandonment, and we have to learn how to love again. And the beautiful part is that attachment isn't a life sentence. Through healthy relationships, self-awareness, and things that we go on in our adult life and we relearn those patterns, we can retrain our brain. There's a thing called neuroplasticity. It's the way our
Mhm.
brain can just form new patterns of learning to love that we weren't taught when we were younger. And therapy helps a lot with that. It really does. It creates an atmosphere of relational correction. So like relationships that weren't available for you when you were younger because of trauma, as you get older and you get into therapy, your therapeutic alliance with your therapist, you start to learn that the relationship can be a strong relationship. It's like a relearning of how relationships are supposed to be in a healthy environment, in an environment where you don't feel judged, you don't have to perform. I want people to know that when they come to therapy, they don't have to perform, they're to be themselves, but it takes time. It takes time
Mhm.
to build that rapport and that therapeutic alliance.
Absolutely. What are some healthy first steps people can take when they recognize a pattern in their lives that is no longer serving them?
Ah, yeah. Well, first, I would say bring it to your therapist if you can. If you can't do that and you don't have access to mental health, I think learning to really keep promises to yourself, building small promises to yourself. A lot of people say, I've made a couple of videos on TikTok that say, I was saying, people want to know how to build self-esteem and build self-confidence. And I don't help people, I can't help them build self-confidence and self-esteem, but I can guide them through that process of keeping very small promises to themselves every day. And I'm talking like really small promises, like today I'm going to go for a walk around the block. Today I'm going to get up off the couch and I'm going to take care of those bills that I said I was going to. Today I'm going to drink 5 glasses of water. Like any small promise that you can make to yourself, over time, they build a strong foundation of yourself that you can keep promises to yourself. It's not about being confident out in the world or being having self-esteem out in the world. It's not waking up with toxic positivity saying, I'm going to love myself and I'm going to be amazing today. It's not that simple, but it is as simple as keeping small promises to yourself. And I'm going to read that chapter of that book that I wanted to read. I'm going to call that friend that I wanted to call. Just making those small steps in your life, that helps build that foundation of I can be here and be this for myself.
Excellent. Excuse me. Grief can come from many kinds of loss, not only the death of someone we love. So, what do you wish more people understood about grief?
I think grief is really a really difficult thing to talk with people about because grief often involves death, but it's not just death of a loved one, or it can be the death of a concept. It can be the death of this chapter that's over in your life. It can be the
Yeah.
ending. It means the ending of something, but it doesn't always mean it has to be negative. Sometimes we have to move on in our lives in different chapters. And it's hard for us to say, like, again, we say, well, I just need to get over it. It's been a year, it's been 3 years. Why do I still feel this way? A lot of times it has to come to acceptance, and there's this concept in DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's called radical acceptance. And I know it sounds like, oh, let me just lay down and accept this and just be over it, but it's different than that. It's more of like, I can't change the facts that this thing happened. A loved one passed away, a chapter of my life is over. Now it's time for me to move on to something else. It's time for a transition. It's accepting the facts that that has happened, but it's also learning to do the next best thing. So, what can you do that's the next best thing for you to be able to move forward? And so not looking back, moving forward with the facts that you have and what can you do with the next best step. So I know in the cartoon Frozen 2, that that movie that came out, there was a part where Anna was like, what is the next best step? And that was actually a really great life lesson for children and for adults to really say, what is the next best step for me in this process of grief that lets me live my best life worth living? And so going from there helps people move on from grief, but also hold with them the love and the passion that they had for whatever they're grieving, whether it's something that needed to end or something that ended abruptly. It's about moving forward and doing the next best thing for yourself to live your best life.
Excellent. Thank you. Major life transitions can leave
Mm.
people uncertain about their identity and future. So, how do you help people find stability when everything around them seems to be changing?
I think we have to start giving ourselves permission to feel both gratitude and sadness at the same time. And like I said, focusing on the next right step instead of trying to figure out the entire journey. Staying connected to people who make you feel grounded, keep some simple routines that remind your nervous system that you're safe, and remember that you don't have to become a completely different person. A lot of times people think that I'm different now, and you are different because you've had a loss. And life transitions are going to be disruptive. They're going to be something that changes. And as human beings, we don't like change very much. It's uncomfortable. And a lot of times, just sitting and being comfortable with being uncomfortable is the process. It's the growth and the process that we go through as human beings, and reaching out to people that have gone through these things before, knowing that the storm, like again, when I think about the ocean, I think about storms and the sea, and it's like a wave, you have to kind of ride a wave where you have this time where you're feeling that, and where a wave hits a crescendo and then it goes down. And it doesn't have to crash. You can just come down from there if you could just sit through being uncomfortable during that time of life transitions. Like right now, I'm in midlife. I have midlife woman things going on that I've never experienced before, these strange things like shoulder pain and hip pain. And I'm like, where is all this pain coming from? You know, and I have to accept that this is the part of my life that these kind of things happen. So what I do is I educate myself, I tap into my support systems. And I know a lot of people say, well, what if we don't have access to those things? What if we don't have access to the mental health? What if we don't have access to a support system? Then you learn how to become your own support system. You think about, what do I want to do that, like I said before, lets me live my best life moving forward. And it's those small promises to yourself during these transitions in life of like, I'm going to call the doctor and find out why my hip feels like this. I'm going to call the doctor and say, maybe I need hormone replacement therapy. I'm going to call a specialist and say, why is this happening to me? Depend on the people that are in your support system and your family and your friends, and give yourself permission to be able to ask for help. A lot of times when we're younger, we're like, I'm just going to power through it. I'm just going to do through it. And that did work when we were younger, but as we get older, we have to start asking for more help. And it's been a hard thing for me to ask for help, but I know that by doing that, I'm helping myself live my best life.
Absolutely. As an author as well as a counselor, how has writing become another way for you to educate, encourage, and connect with people?
Writing has been something that I never thought would be a thing for me. I always loved to write, but I never thought that I could just come out with 3 books that just exploded out of my brain last year. And it's so funny because I just came up with a memory on Facebook and I was promoting my books from last year. It was last year around March. So this year around March, the Facebook memory came up of me promoting my books. And I can't believe it's been a year already that these 3 books. The third book came out late. The first 2 came out pretty quick. The third book came out late, but it finally did get out there. The first book is about the intensity of having these emotions. Basically, I wrote these books about mental health without actually saying they're mental health books because I
Okay.
know there's so many mental health books that I just didn't want to pop out another mental health book. So I called it Feel Everything, Rule the World. And I want people to know that if they have mental health struggles, they're not alone. Their emotions are not they're not crazy. Their emotions are normal emotions that are just a little heightened more than other people. And I've experienced this personally being diagnosed with bipolar 2. Looking back on my life, my younger years, I probably should have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. But as I've grown older, I've kind of like grown out of that diagnosis, and probably bipolar still kind of fits me. But, and so I have these episodes of being really high and really up there doing great things, and then really low, really not being my best self. So during those times, these high times, I use that as a superpower. So last year, when I was at a high point, I wrote 3 books. So,
Oh,
I mean, I just figured, why not? Let me write some books. So through my writing, I'm hoping that people feel not alone. I'm hoping that people read this. And I've heard some feedback where people have said, Tammy, were you like in my living room? Were you in my living room? Like, how did you know these things? And I know them because I live them. I live them, and I want other people to know that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones feeling these emotions so intensely. And my second book is about living with somebody that lives these intense emotions. So my husband and I, we've been together 30 years this year, married, and he's been through all these stages with me of being up and down, up and down, up and down. And so the second book is written kind of like from his, not perspective, but what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody with these intense emotions. And I think it says on the cover how not to screw it up. So it's basically, how do I live with somebody that feels so intensely like this and is so passionate? Sometimes it gets you into trouble, sometimes it doesn't. You got to be able to use your powers for good and not evil. You have to really think about, like I said, what's the next best thing? What's the next most important thing I can do to live my best life? And so that was the second book. And the third book is basically about the situation that I'm in now of learning through those 2 books, of learning what it's like to live your best life, but grieve past versions of yourself. And when you grieve past versions of yourself, you carry forward the version that you still need. So it's leaving behind, it's kind of like shedding. It's like leaving behind a version that no longer serves you. Grieving
Mhm.
it is saying that chapter of my life is over now, but what can I bring with me forward that's positive to continue living my best life? So I'm hoping these books really get out there and serve people into knowing that they have permission to feel the feelings that they feel, that they're not strange, that they're not abnormal, that they're just wired differently. And this is how to use your powers for good.
I love that. Thank you so much. How
Mhm.
can people buy the books? Where can they go to purchase them?
My books are all available on Amazon. I would say the fastest way to find them is to look me up by name. So it's Tami. My mom wanted to be different and spell my name differently. So it's Tami, Tammy Ward, Ward, as in dog. Um, they just look up my name and all the books come up. I have one, two, three books that are paperbacks. I have one workbook, and I have one book that's available on Kindle.
I
And
love-
I'm into a workbook stage right now. I just wrote a workbook called The Therapy Companion. I'm looking at it right here. I don't have the cover all figured out. So um, let me see. Yeah. This is called the Grief Companion. This one isn't out either, but I wrote 3 of them. It's one of them's the Therapy Companion, one of them's the Grief Companion, and one of them is the Attachment Companion. And they're all workbooks. So obviously the first one is about therapy. It would be a great book for somebody learning to go to therapy for the first time. The second book is about grief, and that's just, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's about what you're going through, how you're feeling, what you can do to bring it to therapy, or what you can do for yourself. And then the third one is about attachment. That one's a little thicker because it's just really looking at the core of your attachment wounds and things that you have carried through your life into your adulthood from your childhood. And that one's just about attachment, and it's a workbook that you go through to feel all of those feelings. And so these 3 workbooks will be available soon on Amazon too. I'm just trying to get the covers to be just right. The cover art is difficult, you know. But they can find me there on Amazon.
Wonderful. That's really an extraordinary body of work. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for doing that.
Thank you.
It's so many people.
It's a labor of love.
It's a labor of love, and we love it. Thank you. So finally, Tami, last question. For someone watching today who may be going through a difficult season, what message of hope would you like to leave with them?
That's a tough one. I know it's easy for some people to say to just have hope, and it sounds very cliche, but I think a lot of introspection and a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection is really important. We've been given this one spacesuit. I call it our spacesuit. We get one spacesuit. We don't get to crawl out of this spacesuit and get into another one. This is the only one we get. So we're here on this rock in space doing our thing,
Mm-hmm.
where we need to practice some form of gratefulness and live with intention every day, wake up with intention every day. And I know people are going through some really hard times right now. You know, the political scene, the life scene, the economic scene, everything is really difficult for people. But like I said, if you make those really small promises to yourself, even it's as simple as I'm going to get up and go get a drink of water. I'm going to walk outside and stand in the sun for 5 minutes. I'm going to take my dog out for a walk. I'm going to call that friend that I wanted to call. All those little promises that you make to yourself are the things that keep you going. And a lot of times people say, well, why am I the one that's always reaching out? Or why am I the one that's always, it's okay if you're the one. You can be the one. You may be the one that has to do that. But that's
Yeah.
okay because ultimately you are serving yourself. You know, you're keeping promises to yourself. If you feel like the one that you're always reaching out to friends, that's okay. Reach out. It's okay to do that and give yourself permission to feel and really take a look at yourself and what's important in your life and how you got there and where you want to go and how you're going to get there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Tami, I thank you again for joining us and for reminding us of the importance of compassion, connection, and hope. Your work demonstrates that people deserve spaces where they can be heard, supported, and empowered as they move forward. And to our viewers, I want to thank you for watching The Nikki Clarke Show. Remember, every story has the power to inspire, educate, and transform. Until next time, continue to live with purpose, lead with compassion, and never lose hope. Tami, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now. Well,